Hello and welcome to the Nitro RX Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Thiemo and Nabila, and I am joined, as always, by my brilliant co-host, Nabila. How are you today?
I am doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you. And that's because we're not just back for another episode this week in between Nitro RX rounds, but because we're joined by a guest that we have been trying to get on the podcast for a little while now. And we are very much looking forward to chatting with them. And it is none other than Street Bike Tommy.
Yeah, I'm super excited. This is going to be one of those podcasts where I really don't know where it's going to go. It could go in any which direction.
We say that a
I'm
couple of
excited
times,
to
but
see
we
what
really
happens.
mean it this time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we usually say it because we don't really know much about the driver, but we're not interviewing a driver at this point. We're interviewing a personality, and
So
I
he's a
am super
concept,
hoping
he's
that
an
that whole
idea.
thing comes across. Absolutely. So I think we should get underway.
Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here today. First of all, how are you?
Best ever.
Love that. Love that. Love that.
All right, you guys, you doing good?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Nabila, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm very excited for this chat. I have good vibes for this whole conversation. I can't wait.
Let's go.
Right, so first question I'm going to ask them, because obviously we're here for Nitro, but for everyone
Yeah.
who's only just kind of seen your Nitro and doesn't know that much about you, can you tell us a little bit about you and your background?
Yeah. So I grew up a construction worker, but always like a class clown, just kind of kicking around, having a good time, never hurt anybody, but always in trouble, kind of that kind of
It's a
thing.
good line to walk.
Yeah. And back in the early days of the 2000s, I was always just locally famous for being that guy. And that at that time, me and my friends were just kind of like, having a good time and filming it because we were big fans of Bam Margera, Jackass, and
Mm-hmm.
CKY and all that stuff. So I always had like a little video camera with me, and I was filming all my little antics and stuff. And we always had a locally famous guy, Travis Pastrana, that you'd always hear about. This X Games guy, he's always killing it, going super fast and super cross and doing all these things. So he was like legend around here because you didn't really see much of him because he was always out of town or just wasn't around. And he was a pretty straight laced kid too. So you didn't really see him out and about. He was homeschooled. So when a girlfriend of mine, longtime family friend, because if you went to a high school party back in the day, you went to two places, either my house or her house. And like she had a big family farm and I had a big place that neither one of these parties would ever get busted because they were very back in the woods and police just couldn't trespass to go see the underage drinking. So like we always had great parties. Well, she started dating this dude that everybody was talking about. My friends circle was pretty much just talking about how cool this guy was. He lives at Travis Pastrana's house. And he's like and the house that he lives at's been on MTV Cribs, and that was like a huge deal back then. And Jim DeChamp was the one that was dating my friend. And I was introduced to Jim at a party at her house. And everybody there at that party was like, talking about how cool he was and like, hey, Jim, go get the DVD, go get that DVD. And he goes out to Travis Pastrana's truck because he drove Travis's truck to this party, big yellow F-350, jacked up big wheels and stuff like that. And he goes and gets this burned DVD that has written in Sharpie on it, Nitro Circus. And I originally thought, that's the dumbest name I've ever heard of. Because at the time, everything was like Metal Militia, and like Godfrey had another DVD that was called Children of the Metal God, and even Bam and those guys, they had Camp Kill Yourself, and I heard Nitro Circus, and I was like, that's kind of lame,
The
right?
watered down version of that, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, that's kind of a dumb name. He puts it on and plays this video, and everybody at this party's like, watching the video, and it's like, ooh, oh my God, you guys are crazy. Ooh. And like the video is over and everybody's like, oh my God, Jim, you're so crazy. Oh my God, you're so crazy. And like pretty much at the time, like I was, that kind of alpha dude of the group that was doing those sort of things. So everybody kind of turned it and looked at me like for my opinion. And I was like, super jealous. You know, I just watched something that like I would never be able to do. And I'm like trying to cool guy it and be like, yeah, I was cool, but like, you guys have a lot of things at your disposal. Like that's the best you can come up with, basically. And he was like, oh yeah. And he said, put up or shut up, and invited me to Travis's house because that video was like they were just finishing it up to be released, and it was going to be in Walmart and sold in motorcycle stores and stuff like that. And that was like a big deal. Like it was like, you're going to be famous. You're going to be in Best Buy. So that DVD was getting ready to be sold. So, but they were already filming for Nitro 2. And that's what he invited me to, was to be at Travis's house for the filming of Nitro 2. And, for kind of like a creative get together. And they formed a competition, like who could come up with the best footage would win $2,000. And he told me that. And at the time, like I had just bought my first house, and that was like way more than my mortgage. So I was like, all right, bet. Like I can pay a month's like mortgage, and like I could, that's drinking money right there. So I was like, I'm gonna win this. And we went over there and we did a couple things for video, but nothing to really speak of. I mean, did stupid stuff. Like a couple wheelies on my street bike and stuff locally, but ended up doing that street bike front flip. And that was the first pretty much exposure to Travis. Was overshooting his foam pit and seeing him on the other side, because he had actually just come back from filming something that he was putting together that day, and saw this dude just
so just walks back in and just sees you doing that.
He was coming down his from the house to the shop, and then it's a hill, so like the house was up top, and then the shop's at the bottom. And he was going from the top of the hill down bottom, and he saw this dude on a crotch rocket overshoot his whole shop. And he was like, oh no, like he knew that wasn't good, and he ran around to the backside. So if you watch the extended version, where you actually see me, like where the camera comes around the backside where I landed, the dude in the orange shirt that's like running up, that's actually Travis. And like that was one of the very first times I met Travis. So
how badly did you hurt yourself on that one?
I broke my foot. So yeah. Everybody always
nice
asks
to
me,
meet
like,
you.
yeah. No, yeah. It was a little bit worse than that. Everybody always asks me if I broke my foot, and like there's a lot of lore going around that like I broke my back and like both my legs. But as far as like bone breaks, like I got super lucky that I'm even alive. But I did break every bone in my left foot. Because like I tried to run out of it. So I put my left leg down first, then my right leg. So it pretty much exploded my left foot. I almost lost it because of how badly it was broken. They were just like, we might have to just cut that off. Fortunately it did keep blood flow, and it did heal properly. And I do have pretty decent usage of it. But I did detach my left calf, partial tear of my right Achilles, and I tore my ACL, MCL, PCL on my right side, and partial tear of the LCL with disappeared cartilage, and the front meniscus is completely gone, and the rear meniscus flipped and kind of jammed in the joint, so they had to remove it.
Did you win the $2,000 though?
I did, which I spent on a bottle of cognac.
Well, there we go. That's all right then. It's worth it.
At the time, I had watched Tom Cruise's Cocktails.
Yeah.
And in the movie, they were talking about betting each other a bottle of Louis, right?
Mm.
So, and in the movie, I think it was $400. And I was like, dude, let's go get a bottle of Louis now that I got this cash. And because I always wanted to know what it tastes like. And I went to the liquor store and I asked for the bottle. And the guy looked at me like I was crazy. He was like, you're not going to buy this. And I was like, ring it up. And he rang it up, and it was $1,600. And I was like, already there. Like, oh man. So I bought it. And then we ended up drinking it out of Dixie cups at my friend's house at a party.
Oh,
The early days.
oh, I love that.
So neat. That's brilliant. I mean, what a first impression on Travis, I'm sure. But so with all of that, because it sounds like you did get involved quite in the early days with Nitro Circus, how
Yeah.
did you then start to get involved with Nitro RX when that kind of whole thing spearheaded?
So during this time, like I had been around since the very beginning and helped form Nitro what it is today as a brand, pretty much just as like a personality that's been through the main TV show on MTV, which continued into a couple other spin-off TV shows. There was a Crazy Train and Nitro Live, and then the tour. We did the movie, and then it's just kind of like gone into different things. I mean, we even had that resort down in Panama for a little while. So I mean, when Nitro Rallycross kind of happened, it couldn't happen a better time for me personally, because I had dropped off tour to pursue opening a barbecue restaurant here in Maryland, which I had, and it was great. It was successful. You can look up my reviews. I still had, like, in my first year, I had, I think, 160 plus high rated reviews, like on Google. Even with that many reviews, I still maintained like a 4.8 or a 4.9 star rating.
Pretty solid.
Yeah, but unfortunately, at that same time, COVID happened, and because it was my first year, I had no lines of credit, and I was just using money that I was personally investing. And I had a couple of my friends offer to help me out during that time, and because initially everybody was like, 14 days, just give it 14 days, and I was like, in my head, I was like, there's no way that that's what's going to happen, because like I know the government.
You want to be optimistic, but you don't want to be that optimistic about it.
Right. And like when you give them an inch, it's crazy what the government will do with it. And I knew better, and I was okay with losing my money, but I wasn't okay with losing my friends. So I refused my friends' help at the time, and just went ahead and closed down. I shut the doors, and it ended up staying shut because that 14 days turned into over a year. I think it was like crept into 2 years. And I just stayed closed. But during that time, I fell back on my original skill set when I was growing up. Like I'm a construction worker through and through. Like I was pretty much born onto a job site. My dad's a commercial contractor, and grew up working with my dad and my brother my whole life. And even to today, I can drop in anytime I want and jump on a job site. It was actually a couple months ago. I was working with them for a couple days just to kind of catch up with them, and man, it was funny. It was still yelling at each other like crazy, and not much has changed. But yeah, so like I fell back on my skill set during COVID, and I was pretty much a gypsy contractor. I had an overlanding rig. So I had an expedition with a rooftop tent on top of it, and I just drove around the country to everywhere that wasn't like really crazy about like masking and all that stuff. And I'd just pop in and I'd hang out with my friends, man. Like, so I would just stay in my truck while I was going from point A to point B. And once I got somewhere, I'd just kind of hang out and have a room and find work wherever I was, because construction work just kind of boomed during that time. And life didn't really change much for me, because I was going to all the states that pretty much were allowing life to continue. And I was just going wherever the wind blew, and it was fun. I had a great time during that time. But one of the directions that the wind blew was towards Nitro RX. As soon as things started to kind of like open back up and we were allowed to gather again, the rallycross, because I hadn't been on tour for a while, and I wasn't contracted to do any other TV shows, because I did do Science Channel's The Explosion Show with Tori Belici for a while. But I was free at that time, because I just didn't really want to sign on to anything, and ended up being a good move, because Nitro Rallycross is like one of my favorite jobs I've ever had in my whole life.
It shows.
Yeah, dude, I have so much fun on every single one of these legs. It's crazy. I have a blast with the fans, and I'm a big fan of rally. So being able to watch firsthand, like at every single one of the stops, and mix it up with the drivers, because I'm friends with a ton of the drivers and stuff like that. And it's cool to see who actually stops by periodically, like in between. I get people like Leticia pulls up and does a one or two races. It's pretty cool to catch up with everybody. But yeah, Nitro Rallycross has been a great opportunity. I can't tell you how much I've really enjoyed the series. It's great racing. It's very rare that you actually get these kinds of cars going head to head like they do. And then I get to mix it up and kind of have whatever fun I want to have on the side. So I can't complain.
No, I mean, definitely saying about having kind of fun on the side there. A small selection on here because it'd be too long a list otherwise. But so far, I mean, you're barbecuing food on the back of your pickup, which from the restaurant makes sense now. Going around pranking people, shooting them with Nerf guns, getting a tattoo, done a bit of jet skiing, all for the purpose of entertainment. I want to know, is there anything you're not allowed to do?
I can't they haven't really told me.
Is there a list or?
The only thing that they've gotten a little touchy about was when I was trying to use my buddy in Sweden, who is a pyrotechnic, and he showed up with a flamethrower. They got a little uneasy about that. They were like, because then I don't know how much they showed on the actual broadcast. I know they released the clip later on social, but they didn't use it for live TV because I think it was a little much. My buddy, he had Ronnie the animal. He let Fraser staple a Jamaican flag to his chest. I don't know if you guys caught that.
No, that wasn't on the live coverage from what I remember.
Yeah. So I think that was one of the things that I did, and they didn't use it on the broadcast, but was released through social because I did see it on Facebook, I think. But he was a little much for them. He likes
good to test the limits early on, though, because Sweden was pretty early in the season. So, I see where the line is.
Yeah, he's got a bit where he catches his genitals on fire, and does like a whole like fire breathing thing with juggling and stuff. So that was one of the things that they were like, no.
Is this just kind of a sort of way of you to? I mean, like with the jet skiing, for example, was that just you just ticking stuff off your list of I've always wanted to do this, and this is and somehow they're saying yes to this?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like whatever is available, who's around, because no matter where I go, like kind of like the life I was living during COVID, I just pretty much was hitting up friends, who happen to be in the area that I haven't seen in a while, and was like, I knew that I was in Arizona, and I saw that we had a lake, and my buddy who lives in Lake Havasu is Mark Gomez, multi-time world champion freestyle jet skier who can do tricks on flat water. I was like, that's a no-brainer, and that was the first. And then this season, I was really pumped that I could actually get out there and ride the jet ski because I've always wanted to do that.
Well, we were pumped too when we heard about it. It was like, oh, we got to see this.
I couldn't believe how hard it was to actually ride. Like I couldn't even ride it. Like I don't know, like if you remember the clip, but like they were holding the jet for me to just go and try and flip. Like that was it. I couldn't even ride it around. So it was kind of funny on that aspect where I couldn't even ride it, but I could almost backflip it.
Yeah, you did an interesting maneuver with it. It was definitely unconventional way of doing it. I think is the nice way.
I'm actually going to revisit that soon, so I'll keep you guys posted. Yeah,
hopefully not in Canada. I don't like your chances there.
No. It'll be later this year on my own social channels and stuff like that because I'm getting ready to head up and I'm moving to Minnesota to actually start jump on my buddy's YouTube channel and do some stuff with him. Jake Shearbrook is who I'll be filming with in the future, as well as Nitro and everything else that I got going on. But that's going to be kind of like my main focus is kind of going towards the YouTube direction. Yeah.
So I'm just trying to think. There's so many different avenues. I'm just trying to make sure I get everything in clear bit here, but. Obviously, from what we've seen, and we've got the flamethrower story from Sweden already, which definitely wasn't expecting that. But is there a different fun behind-the-scenes Nitro-related story that you could share?
Oh man. Well, I mean, geez, in Glen Helen, one of my favorite things that's ever happened. Uh, one of the Nitro staff who's actually in the production, uh, he's a car enthusiast, and he out of nowhere, I guess, got a really good deal on a yellow Dodge Viper, and he just was like a super cool dude, and he was like, I was like, man, that thing's sick. I've never driven one of those. He was like, you want to drive it? And I was like, dude, yeah, like really? I can drive it? He was like, yeah, you can drive it, but if you drive it, you got to drive it like you stole it. He said something like that basically like opened the door for like don't just drive it, like
Hmm.
mess around with it. So I ended up getting in
Don't
this
got to
dude,
ask you twice to do that.
right? So I ended up getting this dude's Dodge Viper, and I ripped this huge set of like giant drifted out donuts in the dust part of the parking lot. And it was just throwing like this massive wall of dust, like whipping around. It was like super cool looking. But I forgot to roll the windows up. So when I went around to do the second little circle, it kind of filled the whole car up with the dust, and I felt really bad. Yeah, actually, we were laughing about it this season because I saw him again at Glen Helen this time. But yeah, that was, and like that never. I mean, it was in the broadcast that I was in the Dodge Viper, but it didn't really like me actually messing around with it. We kind of weren't even filming. I was just kind of like messing around. I had Ricky uh, uh, in the thing with me. We were just kind of messing around. Man, it was funny. Like that was one of those ones where it's kind of like, when nobody's looking, you do as much as you can get away with.
No,
I did do a ride along in the new E series in the last Glen Helen race. I got to ride with Travis, which was interesting. I have yet to be inside one of those, one of the E class cars. And man, you want to talk about impressive? I had no clue that the instant speed of those. It was jarring. I've never felt acceleration like that in any other vehicle that I've ever been in ever.
So every driver we talk to always says about the acceleration. You can't really. You have to experience it to know how we feel about it, how we describe it, because it just doesn't do it justice.
It's and you hear people say that, and you're like, okay, yeah, and
Oh,
like
yeah.
you have a picture. No, man, it was actually like startling. Like it's been a very long time since I've been in a vehicle and been like, what is that? But it was absolutely that. These cars are super, super impressive. Definitely got a new respect for them. Not that I didn't before, but I mean, just even knowing their capability firsthand is unreal.
Definitely living up to the name.
Oh man, I can't wait to see these things on ice. Yeah,
At least three of us, I think, we're all very much.
yeah, yeah. I've done a little ice driving in the past myself with Subaru. And man, I had no clue how much driving on the ice was the level of fun that it is. I can't describe it how fun it is to drive on ice. I mean, it is absolutely a blast.
It is something that's super fun.
Yeah.
I don't know, Thiemo, have you ever driven on ice before?
No, not just yet. Which no. I've been
Not
in
on
the
purpose,
car.
anyway.
I've been in the car when it's been on ice, and it's like I'm not sure if I want to be in the driving seat or not.
Yeah. With spikes, it's definitely a treat. Regular tires, not so much. But
Yeah.
you're driving a purpose-built vehicle for the ice. It is one of the most fun things that you can do. Period. Like the driving is so fun on that.
1000%, because I just imagine like I can't even imagine actually what these Group E cars are going to be like on the ice, but I'm excited to see it.
Yeah.
So you've certainly worked with a number of people over your
yeah.
career.
Oh,
but
yeah.
How has it been working with Jared and Coley on events?
They are my favorite announcers I've ever worked with. They make my job so easy. Because normally I'm the one that kind of carries things, because I have, big personality, kind of funny stuff to always say. And I feel like I'm just a seasoning, they're a steak, they're the main course, and I'm just that nice little salt and pepper, man. It's a treat to work with these guys because they're seasoned vets. They're extremely knowledgeable on what they're covering, which I think is why I love them so much, because I've worked with people that don't really, they're great announcers over the years. You know, I've worked with a ton of announcers. They don't really know much about what they're covering. You know, especially with action sports, you have a lot of announcers that are just filling time with words. And they're like, oh, look at him go. He's real flat and laid out, or no idea what an actual trick is, or what even you think about rally. You know, they're just announcers that have been thrown into a situation for a paycheck. But these guys, man, they're enthusiasts. They know everything about the sport. They know everything about the drivers, because, you know, years and years built relationships with them. And they're just very easy to work with. Like, nothing's a problem. There's no diva mentality going on. Like, you know, where's my coffee? None of that. Like, we all ride to the track together. We hang out, and after the event, we hang out and have drinks in the hotels and stuff like that. I mean, it's just been really nice to build those relationships, because I consider them both very great friends at this point. Not just coworkers. Like, these are good friends of mine at this point, and it's been a real treat to work with them.
It's always so nice when you kind of have that great relationship, and I think that relationship comes through so well through all the coverage. You can see you all get along really well, and it makes it more fun to fans, because you are just generally having a laugh with each other. You're not doing it for like the fact that, oh, this is my job. It's just like, no, I'm genuinely having the best time of my life doing this.
It really is. We're having a blast everywhere we go, because even when we're not doing the events, you know, we're normally there a day early, sometimes a day later. And, you know, it's not like we kind of go do our own thing or anything like that. Like, we're hanging out, we're doing things. We get out in all these crazy places and have a really good time, even off track. So it's been a real treat.
I think one of the things, like you were saying before, they were both incredibly knowledgeable about what they're talking about, and like you say, it's not filler between races. It's genuinely interesting stuff that they're saying. I think the only time I've ever seen them kind of like stumped by anything is, amusingly, when it comes back from whatever you've just been doing. And they're just kind of standing there. You're expecting, okay, what are these two going to react? How are they going to react to what he's just done? And just silence, like, okay.
Yeah. And they definitely seem a little thrown off at times, because I'm very unorthodox with what I'm doing, because I don't really know what I'm doing most of the time. And when I get back there and I kind of mess with them while they're doing their broadcasts, I've seen them kind of because they're very professional, and they're not used to people interrupting their thing, you know. And like, if you catch me like getting behind them and like trying to hand them pizza or beers or something, you know, they're like, is this okay? Like, that's one thing that I really love about our broadcast, is that they like kind of give me a little leeway to do stuff like that.
You keep them on their toes, they can keep improving. That's what you're really doing.
Pretty much, yeah. You gotta hone the craft.
So you certainly have quite the story, but what advice do you think you could give to people who are looking into getting into something like in a similar line of work, or kind of involved in the way that you're involved in these kind of sports?
Just, you know, if you have that big dream, you know, and you know you're a big personality, and like you just have that vibe that you're meant for more, is normally where it starts. Because like back when I was starting, all I wanted to do was, I was like, I want to be famous. All I want to do is be famous. I want to be famous. And but when you do your projects, don't let people change your vision, because one of the biggest hurdles that I've dealt with my entire career has been with people trying to tell me to dial it back, or I tell them my idea for something that I want to do, some content wise, and they like to change it and mold it into something that they see. And it's like, well, then you're no longer passionate about it, because it's no longer your thing.
Just so these things wouldn't work that you do if it was someone else doing them. It's because it's you that we enjoy it.
Or if it's somebody else's idea. Like, I mean, there was a time where Nitro was kind of just trying to new things. and they hired an actual Hollywood writer. And some of the stuff that he came up with was funny, but it was very not on brand for myself. Like there was one where that my buddy Crumb, that like if you look him up with the history of Nitro, one of the big names that been around since the very beginning. Crumb, very good friend of mine. We were doing stuff together for a long time on tour, and they wrote us this bit that they wanted us to be in like baby diapers and like covering each other in oil, and it was like this really weird thing. And like I couldn't, we absolutely, like that was the only time that I can remember in the history of myself that I put my foot down and said, I'm not even trying this whatsoever. Like there's no way I can spin this into something that I'm doing that makes sense. So that was one of the only times. But just pretty much stay true to your brand and do things how you see it, because you're the one that's passionate about it. Nobody else is going to be passionate about your ideas. And as long as you put out the things that you're cool with, you'll get to where you want to be. Because the world's big enough to where everybody can have an audience that's built for them. And I've noticed that if you try to be something you're not, if you are successful, you're going to be doing something that you hate because you're not yourself. And if you're trying to pretend, people can see it, and you don't get the audience that you're gonna have, that you should have with something that you love, because there's enough people in this world to where you can have a huge audience doing anything. So it doesn't matter what you want to do, just do it the way you want to do it.
Wise words. I should turn it to a very serious note there, so I'm going to just switch it back to a bit of fun to finish off then. Can you describe Nitro RX for us in 3 words?
Oh, man.
Every time gets them.
No, I can't, because that's ridiculous. You can't hold it to 3 words. Like it's just all the only things that, like, if I see this like thing of jumbled words in my head, and it's just a whole page.
I've got a cheat
of, like,
for you if you want it.
Oh, dude, excitement, speed, fun, comedy, horsepower, torque, like G-forces, all kinds of stuff comes to mind. Like the jumps and stuff. You have these crazy high horsepower cars going door to door.
I was just going to say Nitro RX, Street Bike Tommy, 3 words. But
hey, there he goes. There he goes. That's cool, but yeah, it's definitely the most exciting thing I've ever been around. Because you have no clue what's going to happen. I mean, even in testing, we've seen in testing some of the nastiest crashes, because these drivers are just going out there and pushing these vehicles that are brand new, that nobody knows their full capabilities of. And when you're pushing the boundaries, you're bound to have some type of carnage at some point. But yeah, I mean, I've seen practices that just keep me on the edge of my seat, let alone the actual racing when they're going head to head. I can't believe what these drivers are doing in these cars that they don't really know much about.
It's definitely a series that has so much drama to it, and it's been really exciting to see how they've unfolded the whole way through. And this season, so much more prominently visible. I feel like last year it just had started out. This year they've gone global. They're really working towards that. So I'm really excited to see how the series progresses.
Yeah.
I've got one question I love to ask, because I come from a rallying background. So if you could do any rally, it can be a single stage or the whole event, and in any car, what's it going to be?
Well, I've only done one rally my entire life, and I really, 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 really enjoyed it. It's in my top 3 memories of all time. I did STPR in a B spec, so I would love to do STPR, which is no longer, which is super unfortunate, but it's one of those rallies that just disappears. But yeah, I would love to do STPR in a supercar, like
nice,
banging gears, and like old school supercar too. Like, I want to I want to bang gears and get after it in a all-wheel drive turbo setup. That's my, you know, I know everything's going electric and they're like super fast and they're faster than everything, but like just,
sometimes the old ways.
yeah, well, it's just more fun as a driver, I'm being a little selfish on that answer.
That's
I
your
would
answer. You're allowed to
definitely,
be.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, STPR in a supercar of pretty much anyone would allow me to do it in. I would be all about that because it's just a really cool rally. The roads are a big mixture of gravel, dirt. I mean, big drop offs, tight sections with the forestry in some parts, and you got the one big major jump over the finish. Yeah, that's definitely. I really enjoyed that rally, and I would love to do it in a real car.
Perfect way to end this conversation. I think I'm going to speak for both of us here when I say that we've had an absolute blast chatting with you today, and want to thank you very much for coming on and chatting with us.
I appreciate you guys having me. It's been a really good time, and I love talking about the cars and the past history of myself because I'm pretty vain. So I appreciate you.
We'll bring you on for another part in the future that we can delve more into it then.
Yeah. No, I'll definitely come back on if you guys need me to. I would love that.
That would be awesome, and we would love that too. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Big time.
Well, that was definitely a conversation that did not disappoint, and there's just so much we could delve into that probably requires its own other podcast, which probably involve him again at some point. So I don't even just talk for me, Nabila. I don't know.
I think that was really cool. And do you know what? It was so nice of him to be able to give so much insight into how he got into where he got to, but also encouragement for other people and other young people that are interested in that content creation side of things. It's not my forte per se, but I completely agree with him. And I love that he's like, be true to yourself, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to flourish in that kind of arena. And he's just so humble at the same time. He's achieved so much. He's done so much. He's met so many crazy people, but to still be as humble as he is, I think it's really quite something.
Just maybe don't yeet yourself over a building and break your foot to introduce yourself to someone who can help you get to where you want to go.
No, maybe, keep your bodily...
Don't try this at home, kids.
What's the word? Yeah, no, don't try this at home. But I think that might be all we've got time for today. But fantastic chat for sure.
No, definitely. And in the meantime, if you want to see more from Nabila and I, all the details for that, both podcast-wise, written work, and everything social media, will be in the description below this episode, as well as all the places you can go and find Street Bike Tommy, which, if you haven't already, then you're in for a treat. So that's a very early Christmas present from us, but you're very, very welcome. So we'll be back again soon with another episode, so do keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. And until then, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again soon.